Okay, in this video, we will be reviewing how to solve equations algebraically. Let's jump right in. If you look at this first example, it says if x plus 2 equals 3, what is x? Well, clearly we can see that it's 1 because this is a pretty simple one. If I put 1 there, 1 plus 2 equals 3. 1 plus 2 equals 3 all day long. But let's look at this algebraically. As stated in the Marquez, whenever you are solving an equation, whatever you do to one side of the equal sign, you must do to the other. I like to put this line down the equal sign just to help you divide it so you can see if I do something on this side, I must do the exact same thing on this side. Okay? So let's solve this one algebraically. We know that the answer is 1, but let's look at it. It says x plus 2 equals 3. Well, I'm trying to figure out what x is, so I want to isolate x. Whenever you're trying to figure out what a variable, how much a variable is worth, you want to get that x or that variable on that side by itself. So to move this positive 2, what's the opposite of positive? Well, negative. So if I minus 2 on this side, I must minus 2 on this side. A positive 2 minus 2 is just 0. So that's why things cancel out. If it cancels out to, if it makes 0, if 2 minus 2 is 0, 4 minus 4 is 0, that's why it cancels out. And so now on this side of the equal sign, I'm left with x is equal to, and 3 minus 2 is 1. And that's how you will solve an equation algebraically. Let's look at this next one. If x minus 5 equals a negative 12, well, what is x? Again, we're trying to isolate x. We're trying to get x over here by itself. So anything I do on one side of the equal sign, I have to do it to the other side. So to move this negative 5, what's the opposite of negative? Well, positive. So I'm going to plus 5. If I plus 5 on this side, I have to plus 5 on this side. Negative 5 plus 5 is going to cancel out to 0. So I'm just left with x on this side, and x is equal to a negative 12 plus 5, which will give me a negative 7. And you can always go back and cross-check. Well, let me substitute my negative 7 where I see negative 7 right here. So negative 7 minus 5. Well, let's see. Does negative 7 minus 5 give me a negative 12? Well, negative 7. Cancel. Negative 7 minus 5 indeed give me a negative 12 plus minus. That will give you a negative 12. All right. Let's move on to some more examples here. What we just went over in this first slide here was addition and subtraction. The opposite of addition is subtraction. The opposite of subtraction is addition. Now let's look at multiplication and division. Multiplication is the opposite of division and vice versa. So if I have this equation right here, 5x equals 2, and I want to solve this equation for x, and I'm trying to isolate x. I want to get x on the side by itself. Well, basically, 5x is basically saying 5 times x. That gives you 5x. So the opposite of multiplication would be division. As stated right here, the arithmetic operation is now multiplication, whose inverse is division. If you hear me say inverse, it just means opposite. I'm just saying opposite. The inverse of multiplying by 5 is dividing by 5. So if I have multiplication here, I want to divide by 5 on both sides. I want to divide by 5 on both sides. These 5s will cancel out here, and I will be left with x is equal to 2/5. X is equal to 2/5. Okay. Let's look at this example here at the bottom. You have x divided by 3 is equal to 2. Now, the opposite of division will be multiplication. I'm trying to isolate this x right here, so I need to get rid of this 3 down here. Since I'm dividing, the opposite will be to multiply, to be able to cancel it out. So if I multiply by 3 on this side, I must multiply by 3 on this side. These 3's will cancel out, and I'll be left with x is equal to 2 times 3 will give me 6. That will be your answer for this one. Let's go on here. Solve the following equations. Pause this video and see if you can work through A, B, and C, and then come back and see if you can check them with me. All right, let's take a look at A. A says 4x is equal to 20. Well, remember, 4x is basically saying 4 times x. So the opposite of multiplication would be to divide, to isolate this x. So if I divide by 4 on this side of the equal sign, I must divide by 4 on this side. So that will give me x. These will cancel. Is equal to 20 divided by 4 will give me 5. Let's look at B. 6x equals 24. That is a 6. Do the exact same thing we just did on A. Divide by 6. On both sides, these 6's cancel out. I'm left with x is equal to 24 divided by 6. Will give you 4. All right, let's look at C. X divided by 3 is equal to 5. Remember, we're dividing now. The opposite of division is multiplication. Trying to isolate that, let's make this a different color. Trying to isolate that x, if I multiply by 3 on this side of the equal sign, I must multiply by 3 on this side. These 3's will cancel out right here, and I will just be left with x is equal to 15. 5 times 3 is 15. All right. Let's look at this one right here. Now we're kind of adding addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. We're putting it all together now. So if I have this problem, 3x minus 5 is equal to 16. I'm trying to solve this equation for x. The first thing I need to move will be this 5. I'm subtracting right now. What's the opposite of subtraction? Addition. If I add 5 on this side, let's go ahead and draw my line. Draw my line down. If I add 5 to this side, I must add 5 to this side. These 5's will cancel out. And I'll be left with 3x on this side is equal to 16 plus 5 will give you 21. Now I have 3x, which is just 3 times x. So the opposite of multiplication will be division. I'm going to divide by 3. If I do it to this side, must do it to this side. These will cancel out. And I'll be left with x is equal to 21 divided by 3, which will give you 7. Okay, let's look at this one down here at the bottom. You got a lot going on down here. 3x plus 5 equals 2x plus 1. It's usually ideal to put your variables on the left-hand side and your numbers on the right. You don't always have to do that, but I just kind of like to keep it that way. So when looking at this problem right here, when looking at this one, I should try to get my variables on this side and my numbers on this side. So what I mean by that is the first thing we probably should move is this is this 2x right here. So to move that 2x, it's positive. The opposite will be subtraction. So we're going to minus 2x on this side. If I minus 2x on this side, I have to minus 2x. I'm just going to go ahead and put it where I see a like term. Okay? So now I can go ahead and I can solve this one down. 3x minus 2x, well, that would just give you 1x. I don't have to write the 1, so that just gives me x plus 5 is equal to 2x minus 2x will cancel. So on this side of the equal sign, I'm just left with 1. Now I'm trying to isolate x, so I need to move this positive 5. Opposite of positive, negative. Do it on one side, do it on the other. So I'll be left with x, because 5 minus 5 is just 0. It cancels. X is equal to 1 minus 5 will give you a negative 4. And you have your answer of x is equal to a negative 4. Now this is just to show you, if you ever wanted to go back and check to see if you got the right answer. This is saying that 3x plus 5 is equivalent, because it's equal to 2x plus 1. Well, let's test that out. We can go back and we can substitute our value that we just found for x wherever we see an x, right there and right here, and solve it out and see if we get 2 equal sides. So I have 3 times a negative 4 plus 5 is equal to 2 times a negative 4 plus 1. This is not required. This is just to see if you get the right answer. 3 times negative 4 is a negative 12 plus 5 equals 2 times a negative 4 is a negative 8 plus 1. Negative 12 plus 5 will give you a negative 7. And is that equal to negative 8 plus 1, which will give you a negative 7? We indeed came to the right answer because this statement is true. Negative 7 does equal a negative 7. All right, let's move on to this one here. This one, we are going to have to distribute. What that means is, let me rewrite this big. 3 times 5 minus x minus 2 times 5 plus x is equal to 3 times x 3 times x. Okay. Let me try to rewrite this. I don't know why it's not letting me write it. 3 times 5 minus x minus 2 times 5 plus x is equal to 3 times x plus 1. Okay. You have to distribute. What that means is, on the outside of the parentheses, you must multiply that with everything on the inside. With everything on the inside. This must be multiplied by everything on this one. This one must be multiplied by everything in this one. So let's do that now. 3 times 5 will give you 15. 3 times a negative x will give you a negative 3x. Negative 2 times 5 will give you a negative 10. Negative 2 times x will give you negative 2x equals 3 times x will give you 3x, and 3 times 1 will give you positive 3. Now you want to combine your like terms. When I say like terms, on this side of the equal sign, let's look at each side of the equal sign separately. On this side of the equal sign, we have negative 3x and negative 2x. And then we have 15 and negative 10. Those are the things that you can put together. So when I say that, you can put 15 minus 10 together. 15 minus 10 will give you 5. So I can go ahead and I can write 5 here, because 15 minus 10 is 5. And then negative 3x minus 2x will give you, well, let's go to our calculator if you don't know. Let's go to our calculator. Negative 3 minus 2 will give you a negative 5x. Negative 5x. There's no need to put the x in the calculator. Just put the numbers. But whenever you write your answer, you cannot leave the x off. So that will give you minus 5x will be equal to, and let's see, do we have any like terms on this side of the equal sign? We don't. We just have 3x plus 3. Now remember, I'm trying to get all my x's together and get all my numbers together. So if I want to get this x over with this x, to do that will be to subtract 3x on both sides, because that's a positive. The opposite of positive is subtraction, negative. So I'm going to subtract 3x. If I do it on this side, I have to subtract 3x on this side. I will be left with 5. Let's go to our calculator. Negative 5 minus 3. Remember, you don't have to put the x's in there. Will give you a negative 8. Now you have to remember to put the x. Negative 8x, which is equal to, these 3's will cancel out. 3 minus 3 is just 0. They cancel out, and I'm just left with 3 on this side. Now I need to move this 5. It's positive. To move it, I have to subtract 5. If I do it on this side, I must do it on this side. These 5's will cancel out, and I'll be left with negative 8x is equal to 3 minus 5. Well, that's going to give you a negative 2. Let's look at it. 3 minus 5 will be negative 2. Negative 2. And now I have a multiplication problem. Negative 8 times x gives me negative 8x. So the opposite of multiplication will be division. I'm going to divide by a negative 8 so I can get that x by itself. If I do it on this side, I must do it on this side. These will cancel out, and I will be left with x is equal to a negative 2 divided by a negative 8. Well, let's do some math here, because we want to get the reduced fraction version of it. So we have negative 2 divided by a negative 8. It's going to give you a positive 0.25. Hit math, number 1, to change it to fraction. Going to give you 1/4. 1/4. And so for this particular answer right here, x will be equal to 1/4. Pause this video and see if you can work through these on your own. All right, let's look at K. 2x plus 7 plus 8x is equal to 13. First thing, let's look and see if we have any like terms. We do. We have a 2x and we have a positive 8x. Well, let's combine those. 2x plus 8x will give you 10x plus 7 equals 13. Now we have our new equation here. We're trying to solve for x. So trying to isolate x. So let's move this 7. It's positive, so let's make it negative. If you do it on one side, you must do it on the other. These will cancel out. So I'll be left with 10x is equal to 13 minus 7, which will be 6. Okay? I'm multiplying now 10 times x, so I have to divide by 10 to isolate that x. Those 10s will cancel out, and I'll be left with x is equal to, let's go, because I want the most reduced form, 6 divided by 10. 6 divided by 10 will give you 0.6. Math, number 1 for fraction, 3/5. 3/5. All right, let's look at L. Let's look at L. I have 3 times x plus 1 plus 4x is equal to 26. The first thing you want to do is you want to distribute. You want to go ahead and multiply everything in its parentheses by the 3 that is on outside of it. So now I'm going to have 3 times x. Well, that's going to give me 3x. 3 times 1 will give me 3. Plus 4x. I'm just going to write down the rest of my equation now. And now I'm going to combine my like terms. Well, I have a positive 3x and a positive 4x. That's going to give me 7x plus 3 is equal to 26. Trying to isolate that x. So I'm going to move this positive 3 with a negative 3. Do it on both sides. These will cancel. Now I'm going to be left with 7x is equal to 23. Is equal to 23. Divide by 7 on both sides. I'm trying to isolate that x. And I'm left with x is equal to 23 divided by 7. 23 divided by 7 will give you a fraction. Math, enter, and it does not reduce. That will be your answer for L. Let's look at M real quick. Let's look at M. I am going to distribute this 8, and I'm going to distribute this negative 2 before I do anything else. So 8 times M will give me 8M. 8 times a negative 3 will give me a negative 24. So 8M minus 24. Negative 2 times M will give me a negative 2M. Negative 2 times a negative 2 will give me a positive 4. And everything is equal to 20. Now I'm going to combine my like terms. Well, I have a 8M and I have a minus 2M. I have negative 24 plus 4. So let's combine those real quick. 8M minus 2M, well, that's going to give you 6M. Negative 24 plus 4, well, that's going to give you minus 20. It's going to give you minus 20. It's going to be equal to 20. Trying to isolate that variable. I'm trying to isolate M. So I'm going to add 20 to both sides of my equal sign. Add 20. These will cancel. I'm going to be left with 6M is equal to 20 plus 20 will give me 40. I'm going to divide by 6 on both sides. I'm trying to isolate that variable. These 6's will cancel out, and I'm going to be left with M is equal to 40 divided by 6. Let's do the math real quick. 40 divided by 6. Math, fraction, enter. 20 over 3. That is the most reduced version of that problem. If you have any questions on this, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. Do not forget that we are having live classes now. So if you need help, join the live class. I will be there to assist you. I can show you my screen. I can give you problems to work through. We're going to get through this together, and we're almost done with school for the year. So, again, if you have questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me.